Okay, so before I start this video, I just need all of us to collectively, take a moment to appreciate this really cute top with the little rose moment. I think it's so adorable, but it's gonna be out of frame for this entire video, so oh well, I got dressed up for nothing, I guess, but that's life. Today, I'm gonna talk about aging and the fear of getting older, specifically in your 20s. Again, because I'm in my 20s, so I can't tell you very much about the fear of aging in your 50s. I'd imagine that's a very different thing. And obviously, the older you get, the more you have like valid health concerns about getting older too. That is not the case when you're in your 20s though, which is one of the reasons why I feel like being afraid to get older in your 20s is fucking ridiculous because you really don't have any reason to be afraid of getting older at that point. It's still very normal and very common to be afraid of aging in your 20s and to be really apprehensive about getting older. I feel like 30 is especially a milestone that a lot of people are scared to hit. I feel like prior to 25, people are really scared of 25, and then after 25, they're really scared of 30. I personally am 28. I'm so fucking excited to be 30. I cannot tell you, like, oh my God, I cannot wait. I can't wait to be 35, to be 40 and 45, and to just see where my life goes and like what the fuck happens and what I'm gonna do with it. Like, I'm so excited for all of that, and I love getting older, which is why I made this video, because I think aging is so cool and so amazing, and getting older honestly is one of my favorite fucking things on the planet. And hopefully in this video I'm gonna do a decent job at explaining why that is and all the really positive things that I think come with getting older. One of the things that inspired me to do this video was actually my gray hair. I don't know if you can see them here, but I have like, I don't know if they really show on video, but I have like quite a few gray hairs right here. They've all decided to collectively grow in the same spot for whatever reason. And I used to actually hate my gray hairs, which obviously also speaks into, beauty standards and ageism and all of that, which is an entirely different conversation that we're not gonna have today. But I used to hate them because they're a sign of aging, right? And so I used to like pluck them out, which, at this point there are so many of them in the same spot that I just have like a bald spot if I decided to pluck all of them out. So I don't do that. But also, I've grown to really like them because I really enjoy getting older. And at this point, the way I feel about my little grays is that like I've earned them, like I've been through like stressful fucking shit in my life. I'm still quite young, so I expect that I'll still be through like many more stressful experiences as I continue living. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I've earned them. Obviously it's genetic as well. My dad got gray hair, I think quite young too, so that's probably, his fault, really. But I honestly don't mind. I actually think they're kind of cool at this point, so I keep them. Also, people often think that I'm a teenager, which is very strange to me. I don't think I look like a teenager, but I frequently am told by people that they thought prior to hearing my age that I was like 18 or even younger than that, which is concerning to me. I think that also just goes to show that, I don't know, people think when you're past 25, you're supposed to look fucking dead or something. Like, it's so weird to me. Like, whenever people are like surprised by my age because they think I look young, I'm like, how do you think a 28-year-old looks? How did you expect I would look? Like, I'm not anywhere near close to the grave yet. Like, what the fuck? I don't know, it's so weird to me. So that's also one of the reasons that I left them in, because I'm just really tired of that. I don't really know that people notice them in general that much anyway, but I'm trying. Which is also, I am, again, often told that I look younger than I am, a lot younger than I am at that too. And I'm also often told that that's a compliment, which I know that's how it's intended, especially because we also live in a culture where I guess basically the beauty ideal for women is to look 12 or something, like for our whole entire lives. But I don't mind looking my age. I don't think 28 is old by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think you're old when you're in your 30s either. So I don't have any problem with looking my age. And I don't feel the need to look younger than I am. I don't feel the need to look 18. And I also don't. I had much more collagen in my skin when I was 18, I assure you. And I think that, example that, it's supposed to be like a compliment that I look supposedly 10 years younger than I actually am, which is concerning to me personally. But I think that also goes to show the apprehension that we have in our culture about getting older, especially as a woman, I think. And obviously there are many like beauty ideals and standards that kind of come with that too. And so that's a different kind of pressure and a topic for a different video. But I think it's an interesting example of this apprehension that we have towards aging. And I think a lot of that, especially in your 20s, also comes from the fact that many people in their 20s don't necessarily feel like they're at the place in their life that they want to be, or that they always thought they would be at that point. Maybe you always really wanted a family and you thought you would have that before turning 30, and you're about to turn 30 and you're nowhere close to having a family of your own. Maybe you thought you'd be a millionaire by the age that you're at. Maybe you thought you'd be done with your degree by now and you're not. That's me, hey. But, you know, there is this uncertainty that just comes with life that's built into it that makes us ultimately incapable of predicting exactly what's going to happen. And so as a natural consequence of that, a lot of us at some point in our life will experience this feeling of, oh, I'm not really at the place that I thought I was going to be at this current point in time. And I think for a lot of people, that's really difficult to accept. And it's also been difficult for me to accept sometimes. That still is like a feeling that I struggle with too. I think also because there is a lot of pressure put on you in your 20s to have your life figured out by a young age, by like society and the world around you, or to live your life in a certain way. And so it can be difficult to kind of resist that and work through those emotions. But I think that's actually a pretty cool thing for a couple of reasons to not be in the place in your life that you want it to be. And I'm going to explain why. Because I think when most of us go like, oh, like I don't want to get older because I'm 25 and I thought I would have 5 kids and a husband by now, and I've been dating for years and he's nowhere out there, or like whatever your thing is. It could be all kinds of things that you wanted to have accomplished, right? Whatever it is. I think being like, oh, I don't want to get older for that reason because I'm not where I want to be in my life, that doesn't make any sense. I think that's looking at it in reverse, because literally if you don't have those things yet and you're nowhere close to it, that means that it's still out there, but it's just past that age that you're so afraid of. You still have all of the best stuff in your life yet to come, all of the things that you have always been most excited to accomplish. Not having it yet means that you still have all of that to look forward to. So I think when you're like, oh, I'm not where I wanted to be, so I don't want to get older, I think that's looking at it all wrong. That means that you then get a year closer every time to ultimately achieving that goal, getting to that place that you want it to be at. And you still have that left to be excited about. Imagine if in our 20s, we had already experienced all the best things that were ever going to happen in our lives. I think that would be really, really sad, right? I think that would be so depressing. Then like, what would be the point of the rest of your life? If you'd done everything you ever wanted to do by 20, what would be the point of the rest of it? Because the fact is, most of us will live past our 20s. Most of us will live quite a bit past our 20s as well. So the odds are that you still have quite a bit of time left past your 20s. What the fuck would you do with all of that time if you'd already done everything by the time you were like 20? If you already had your own like multi-million business and, you know, the perfect family and an amazing house, and you'd visited every country in the world by the time you were 20? What the fuck would you do with the rest of your time? Like, that's just not how life is supposed to go. So I think the fact that you haven't accomplished everything yet is also something to be excited about. Like, it's also useful to be able to acknowledge that, okay, like I'm not really at the place in my life that I want to be at right now, and there's still many things that I want to accomplish or experience that I haven't yet and that are still quite far away. I think it's useful to acknowledge that so you can identify what you want and you can work towards it. But it's also exciting because it means that all of that is still ahead of you, past that age that you're so terrified of. And that brings me to my next point, which is that with living for a longer period of time comes just more life. The older you get, the more life you've gotten to live, and the more experiences you've had, the more people you have met and loved, And there's so much good and so much joy that comes with getting older and with living life. And so I think essentially when we're apprehensive to aging, I think we're resisting life, because in order to live, you have to get older. You do. I just watched a YouTube video by this YouTuber called Sandra Villa, who talks about aging as well. And she says something in her video that I really fucking love. She says you can either get older or you can die. Those are your only two options. So like when people are so dissatisfied with aging, it's like that literally is what happens when you live. That literally is the result of being alive. You cannot get to exist on this planet and not get older. You can do that, or you can be dead. That's it. And so all of that is to say that when we resist aging, we also resist life. Because aging really is just a marker of time having passed, and time having passed equals life lived, right? That also reminds me actually of another video that I watched by Lena Norms, who's one of my favorite YouTubers ever. I love her stuff. But she did a video, I'll see if I can find it, but it's a while ago since I watched it. I think she talked about ageism. And she said that ultimately, when someone was older and looked older, often they're thought about as being like closer to death, but in reality, isn't it more the opposite? Isn't it more so that they're actually full of life because they've lived so much life? So certainly they must be full of life. And I love that way of looking at it, because I think it's true, and yet it's like the opposite of the way that we're taught to look at it. But surely you would be full of life the longer that you live, right? And inevitably, to be alive, like time has to pass and you will age. Like that is going to happen. You will get older, and literally like that number that you're so scared of, whether that be like 23, 25, 28, 30, that just is a marker of time having passed, life having been lived. Like you literally could not pay me to go back and be like 20 or 25 for like a single day of my life. And that's not to say that I have so much respect for like the 20, 25-year-old version of me. I have so much respect for like both of those versions of me. And I think both of them were doing great and did so many things that I can be very grateful for today, because they helped lay the foundation for the life that I have now. But also inevitably, those versions of me were younger and they didn't know everything that I know now. They were working towards like the person that I am now, but they weren't quite there yet. And there was still a lot left for them to learn and experience. And certainly I'll feel the same way when I'm like 55. Like I'll probably look back on the age that I am now and I'll be like, you could not pay me to be like 28 again. I will probably say that. I hope that I'll say that I'll enjoy the age that I'm at. And there are a couple of things that I've really gotten out of getting older. I think the best thing for me has been just feeling so much at ease with myself and who I am the older I get, because you have more life experiences. You learn so much more about yourself the older you get, and you learn to also just be so much more okay with yourself and with who you are the older that you get. Like you just simply learn to care less. That, like super extreme like self-consciousness that you have when you're really young, that goes away with age, with learning that it's okay to be who you are. And learning to love yourself, I think, is really very, very much a thing that does come with getting older, and also getting to know more people, and also seeing bits of yourself reflected in them that maybe you think is weird or like not okay somehow, and then seeing that in other people and being like, oh, it's actually fine to be like that, or like this thing that makes me really weird, someone else has that too, or like other people are just weird in different ways. And that's something you learn again with experience and with meeting more people, and that takes fucking time. And you know what happens with time? You get older. Also, I think a thing that has really happened for me with aging is also that it has allowed me, I'm saying aging like I'm only 28, but with getting older, is that with time, I have also built up this confidence that I know that I'm a good person. I know that I am kind. I know that I'm empathetic. And I can say that not just because like I think so or because I try, but because I also have like a track record. I have things to look back on that have allowed me to build up this respect for myself that I wouldn't have had if I didn't have that period of time to look back at. Like I have demonstrated that I'm actually by, according to my own values, a pretty cool person. I've demonstrated to myself that I can do difficult things, that I can overcome my fears, that I can act with integrity and self-respect even in situations where I don't particularly feel like it. And I only know that because I've done it, because time has passed, because I've lived and I've had experiences and I've seen how I reacted as a consequence to them. And that has really allowed me to build up this respect in myself that you can't really have quite in the same way when you're young, because you're not old enough to have that track record yet. So like, I can sit here and say today as a 28-year-old that I'm really proud of who I am and that I really respect who I am as a person, not just because I try to be like a decent person, but I think I have a pretty good track record of also living according to those values. Not perfect, admittedly, but pretty good, I think. Also, something that I think is worth keeping in mind is that like, one of the reasons also that I would not go back to being 20 or 25 is also because like, there are people that I know now who are very important to me that I did not know when I was 20 or 25. And I think that's worth remembering and keeping in mind as well, that there are also people who down the line someday are going to mean a lot to me that I haven't met now. Like, there are people out there that I will love and that will mean a lot to me and that I'll have beautiful connections with that I have not met yet, that I do not know yet, because I'm still quite young, and the life experiences that I'm going to go through over the course of like the next several years, ultimately they're also going to prepare me to connect with the right people down the line. I think when we resist age, like, you also resist all the things that are still out there left for you to experience, including all the people you are going to love so much that you haven't met yet, that you don't know yet, because you're just not ready to meet them yet. You're just not at that point in your life. And you're also not supposed to, because you're not supposed to have experienced your full life and lived out your full potential in your 20s. You're just not. That would be insane. What would be the point of having like a whole human life then? Also, as you get older and experience more, as like a natural result of just having had more time on this planet, you will also have the opportunity with age to explore yourself more and your hobbies and interests. And inevitably, as a result of that, will just become a more well-rounded, self-actualized version of yourself. I think in general, the older you get, the more self-actualized you become, the more you'll be able to, tap into and express different areas of your potential as a person. You have not yet lived out your full potential when you're still just in your 20s. At least I don't think most people have. And I think the idea that you have already done that when you're still in your 20s would be, again, a little sad, a little depressing, because then what is there to look forward to? What's there for you to do with the rest of your life, if not to explore yourself and continue to learn and grow as a person? So that is a really dope thing that comes with getting older too. I saw this thing on Instagram a while ago. It was like a quote that was written somewhere. I don't remember where I saw it. But it said, childhood is a time of innocence and adulthood is a time of love. And I thought that was so interesting and so beautiful, because I think often adulthood is painted in a light that's like kind of a little bit negative, because obviously, as you grow older and become an adult, you get more responsibilities. And I think because of that, there can be like a very unfortunate negative stigma attached to adulthood, and so it can be framed often in popular discourse as almost like a burden to be an adult person with responsibilities. And not to say that aspects of adulthood are not burdensome and difficult, and that the feeling of being overwhelmed with all of that is perfectly valid at the end of the day, and a very normal experience that I think most people have at one time or another. But often it seems like as a result of almost demonizing adulthood, we forget about all the positive, beautiful aspects of adulthood and also kind of glorify childhood. But there's often this idea, of childhood as a time of innocence, a time where you don't know very much yet and haven't experienced very much because you're still quite young. You have no responsibilities, which I think is something that when a lot of people are nostalgic about childhood, that's something that they seem to miss, this, not having responsibility or having a care in the world. yes, as a kid, you have no responsibilities really, but you also don't really have any freedom. You're completely reliant on other people for your own survival, as you should, because you're not really intelligent enough at that point to take proper care of yourself and you need someone to do it for you. That also means that you can't make your own choices freely because you have adults in your life that do it for you. Because ultimately, you're dependent on other people to do that for you. Responsibilities is something that comes with freedom, and that you do have as an adult. Not saying there are not constraints on the freedom that we have as grown-ups, like, the confines of living in a capitalist hellscape. That definitely is some of the limitations on adulthood, but you can make your own choices. You have the freedom to decide for yourself in many ways what you want to do with your life and with your time and who you want to spend it with and where you want to go with it. And to me, that is absolutely worth it. Like, if I would never want to go back to being a kid for a single day. Like, again, you could not pay me to do it, because to me, like, having freedom is worth it. And I think a lot of people don't want freedom because it comes with responsibility. And like, sometimes I don't either. Sometimes I'm like, no, whatever, it's fine. But responsibility ultimately is the price that you pay to be your own person and make your own choices. And to me personally, that is really worth it. I would never give up on that just to not have a responsibility. All of that is to say that I think this like framing of adulthood as a time of love is so beautiful, because I think that it is. I think your adulthood is a time of love. It's a time where, you can get to choose the people that you want to spend your life with. If you don't particularly like where you came from, then you get the opportunity in adulthood to choose your own family or to choose to extend your family in different ways. You get to experience life and make connections and learn about yourself. And as you get older, I think most people also learn to increasingly love themselves more. Not necessarily perfectly, but I think there is a certain, peace with who you are that doesn't tend to increase with age, it seems. Sometimes when we demonize getting older and aging, I think it's also a little bit of a resistance to adulthood and a little bit of rebelliousness against adulthood. And I think it's honestly like quite natural to feel some rebelliousness against, again, all of the increased responsibility that comes with getting older. But also, remembering that adulthood, because it is a time in your life where you can make your own choices, that can be a time of love. That's your opportunity to make this part of your life a chapter of love. And I just think that's so wonderful and really beautiful. So anyway, I think main takeaways from my little yapping session here is that getting older is a gift. Also really important to remember, not everyone has the privilege of getting older, and it's incredible that you're lucky enough to get to do that, because that is kind of the best case scenario, right? The best case scenario when a life is born is that this person lives to become really old and to have a long life. That's what you hope for. That's what your parents hope for you. That's what your friends hope for you, and what you, at the end of the day, probably hope for yourself too. So at the same time, then having this hatred or resistance towards getting older, it doesn't make any sense, because that it's the best thing that could possibly happen. And there is so much I think wisdom that comes with age. You get more opportunities on this earth the longer you live, as just like a natural consequence for being around longer. There are more opportunities that you will get in time that you would miss out on if you were to cut your life off at a certain age. Also, you can get older or you can be dead, and those are the only two options. So I think getting older comparatively is the much better choice, and you become a more well-rounded person the older that you get. And the more time you have on this earth, the more opportunity you have to do the things that you want to do that mean a lot to you, because the longer you live, the more time you get. So yeah, I think getting older is fucking awesome. I absolutely recommend it. It's like the best, honestly. So yeah, and if you're at a point in your life where you don't have the things you thought you were going to have at that age, that just means that, they're still out there waiting for you, most likely. You still have all of that left to be excited about and to look forward to, and how fucking cool is that? Anyway, I think that was kind of everything that I had to say for this video on the topic of aging. I'm sure I'll, you know, once I stop filming this, I will think of many more things that I could have and should have said, but ultimately forgot. But oh well, it is what it is. I'm not gonna try to do an outro because I tried doing like a million outros for the last video, and at this point I've tried doing a couple for this video as well, and they just never work out for me. So yeah, bye.